Hello, everybody. I hope everybody can see everything and hear me. If not, please give me a sign by using the chat function, for example. So welcome to this webinar from IREP and ISQI, and thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Sabrina, and I'm working for ISQI as Key Account and Partner Manager, and ISQI is the organizer of this webinar. We are very glad that we were able to gain Stefan Sturm, Managing Director of IREP, as our expert for today. So before I will hand over to Stefan Sturm, who will give you interesting insights about the new module, Requirements Engineering at Agile Advanced Level, I will start with giving you some general information about ISQI, who is one of the international certification bodies of IREP. So ISQI has been founded in 2004 in Potsdam, Germany, and now we have 3 subsidiaries worldwide, in the Netherlands, in the UK, and the US. So until today, we conducted over 150,000 exams on 6 continents, in 90 countries, and in 10 languages. We are working together with over 300 invigilators who are conducting exams for us globally. So here on this slide, you see the cooperation model on which IREP and ISQI's cooperation is based on. So it's based on the certification process ISO 17024, which divides the responsibilities of each party strictly. So IREP, as the board, publishes and maintains the curriculum, the glossary, and the certification procedure for CPRE, for the foundation levels, and of course also for the advanced levels. And the certification test is conducted by the certification bodies, and one of them is ISQI. Then we have the international training providers on the other side, and they are responsible for developing the training material and are conducting the trainings based on the syllabus. So thank you, everybody. Now I will hand over to Stefan Sturm, who will give you more information about the newest IREP module. So maybe it will take some time until you can hear him. So Stefan, currently you are muted.
Yeah, you needed to unmute me. Hi.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Very welcome to this webinar about the CPRE Advanced Level RE at Agile. Take the next step. My name is Stefan Sturm. I'm the Managing Director of the IREP, and this talk is based on material from Kim Launroth, who is the first chair of IREP, and Markus Meuthen, who heads the RE at Agile working group. So these are the real experts there, and I'm happy to get their material, and I've developed a few further things for you. So, I need to forward the slides. Just a second, please. Just need to get into here we are. So the agenda for the day, a very short introduction of IREP, then only shortly how RE is indispensable still. And of course, Agile brings new aspects. RE or Agile? Are there differences? Where are the differences? Are there misunderstandings, pitfalls? And then, of course, our question is, does it go together, RE and Agile? And how does it go together? And then in the, let's say, second part, I will dive deep into the RE Agile advanced level curriculum and give you information what it's all about. About me, my name is Stefan Sturm. I'm the Managing Director of the IREP GmbH, which is based in Germany. IREP GmbH is the operating company of the non-for-profit IREP Association. That's a very important fact. IREP is a non-profit association, and the company, the operating company, is 100% owned by the IREP Association. So there are no private shares, nobody earning money with that. We are serving the community with requirements engineering stuff. The company is supporting the board organizing working groups, helping the members to develop the content. The company is not working on any content. And of course, we are doing a lot of marketing, and we press releases and holding webinars like this one and so on. The IREP Association is the think tank. These are full members, renowned experts from universities, industries, research, consulting, and education, and a lot of committed members who together elaborate the curriculum, the glossaries, the study guides, and the exams for the CTP-RE, the Certified Professional for Requirements Engineering. And that's about IREP. I'd expect that in a webinar about the advanced level, you know pretty much about the IREP already. So, requirements engineering is still indispensable. We have all experienced that RE is a valuable discipline. And if we want to be successful in our endeavors, requirements engineering still is indispensable because, as Donald Knuth said, computers are good at following instructions, but not at reading your mind. Let me say, not yet at reading your mind. How shall we know what to build without thinking about it before we build it? That's the question, right? And it can become very costly when RE is not performed very well. If you look what Fred Brooks said, the middle part, no other part of the conceptual work is as difficult as establishing the detailed technical requirements, and no other part of the work so cripples the resulting system if done wrong. So requirements engineering is indispensable as well when we do things agile. Nevertheless, we experience that projects fail, even if we do RE. Or let me say the other way around. Is it perhaps because of the way we are doing RE? Should we perhaps do requirements engineering in a different way? So the goal can't be to create huge piles of documentation. And in fact, it never has been the goal. RE is not a reason for comprehensive documentation. It has only been applied in processes which were producing a lot of documentation. And RE can as well be applied in processes which do only create small amounts of documentation. I'll come back later to that. Of course, Agile has brought new aspects into software and product development. And let me talk about that a bit more in depth. So you all know the Agile Manifest and its statements, but we as IREP and a lot of others out there think that there have been some misunderstandings, and still there are. Look at the red ellipse. While putting more emphasis on the items on the left, the items on the right are still valuable. In the pure Agile community, this is neglected very often. Nobody has said that we do not need documentation tools or plans. We just value the left side more. So the most common misunderstandings in Agile are that you don't need any tools and no processes anymore, and you don't need any documentation anymore. And this is wrong. This is wrong. So the question is, RE or Agile, can these go together? Where are the problems? How can we handle that? Let me talk about some misunderstandings. The first one, RE equals upfront, and upfront is evil. So very often RE is considered to be possible only as an upfront activity. But our requirement engineering as a discipline is process agnostic and does not state anything like this. It's very opposite. The activities of RE can be performed within an agile context in the same way as other activities, like coding, testing are performed. So RE only needs to be integrated into the iterations. And preparing for iterative development is an essential part of a development undertaking. And upfront thinking does not itself imply any particular software lifecycle or lengthy analysis phase or documentation. When and how much upfront thinking is performed will be determined by the project context. And the practitioners should be careful not to interpret the agile literature in a way that upfront thinking is bad in itself. The manifesto and the principles do not support such an understanding. The next misunderstanding, and this where I come back to the documentation. Requirements engineers produce useless paper documentation. This is what people think about RE, but the documents are only one potential result of an activity that creates knowledge, and that's all about requirements engineering. And requirements engineering includes to be aware of the fact that a document is never an end in itself. A document serves many things like legal compliance, preservation of valuable information, facilitation of communication, and a document supports the thought process. So just as an example, have you ever created a glossary in your projects? In the end, there will be a document where terms are defined so that everybody gets the same understanding of the terms. But a very valuable part is in creating the glossary, in having the discussions with different stakeholders, colleagues, partners, supporters, suppliers about the terms, and to create that common understanding. And in the end, you will have a document which makes it more easy for newbies to enter into the topic. But the process of creating this glossary is the very important and valuable thing. Then another misunderstanding in the agile world is that realized software is the only means to validate requirements. You need to build it, then you can see whether you met the requirements or not. And this is because the Agile Manifesto values working software over comprehensive documentation. Yes, but when it comes to the validation of requirements, the wrong conclusion from this is that it can only be done and only be done by validating running software. But software as a means to validate requirements is only preferable if the costs and risks related to such a validation approach are acceptable compared to the outcome. So if it becomes too expensive or if the risk is too high to develop something to the end, you need to find other ways of validating requirements. And there RE provides several prototyping tools to enable such a validation. For example, user interface mockups or storyboards. So there's much more for validating requirements than only realized software. Now this is going wrong. I would have expected a different slide. The next thing is that we value working software over comprehensive documentation. And I perfectly agree, but let me stress that a bit with some analogies. You would all hopefully agree that we value a meal over the recipe. We are interested in the meal. If you go to a restaurant, you order the food, and perhaps you are interested in how it is prepared, but in the end, you are interested in the meal. So a meal can be prepared quite agile. Yeah, you can add spices, iterative and incremental, and hopefully in the end, you get a good meal. But if you like it and you want to do it again the same way, you should write down at least the basic ingredients and steps. So you should have some documentation if you want to reproduce that. Or perhaps if you don't want to because it was not good, you should know what did I put into it. Okay, this is an analogy. Or a house, you value the house much more than the building plan. You can build it agile. You can do it iterative and incremental, more or less. In my neighborhood, they are building a house for about, let me say, 10 years now. And each Sunday. And it's very incremental. But in the end, you still need to know something about your house. If you want to drill a hole somewhere later on, you should know where the cables and pipes are. You need the building plan. And it's very obvious. So why don't we do that as well in software development? Working software over comprehensive documentation, perfectly agree. Yes, get it running and done. But requirements documentation is, in a certain context, valid and necessary. Then there are some pitfalls. People in an agile environment often think that all requirements are user stories. But user stories are only one popular method of capturing stakeholder needs. They are intended to start communication and not to represent the complete specification. And the path from an unspecified need towards a full requirement is summarized in a practice called 3C, the card conversation confirmation. But a much fuller picture of requirements you can achieve by combining user stories with other RE approaches, such as context diagrams, prototyping, use cases, and user journeys, for example. So user stories is just one method of capturing stakeholder needs. Then there is a danger that you lose the big picture, because very often in an agile environment, you focus only on the topics that are immediately in front of the team. But if everybody only focuses on the work at hand, the big picture and the long-term perspective gets lost. So sustainable agile methods need to address long-term and mid-term perspectives as well. There are dedicated sessions for that, like refinement sessions, road mapping sessions, or visioning workshops. You need to be careful here. So RE and Agile, how does it go together? Are they siblings? Are they friends? Or what is it? Let's check the Agile principles. The first principle, highest priority, is to satisfy customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. And RE provides the relevant understanding of the stakeholders' desires and needs to develop valuable software. There is a perfect tool set for that in RE. And of course, Agile facilitates fast and continuous delivery. Goes together very well. Check. The second principle, that we welcome change in an Agile environment. And RE provides proper and good tools to recognize changes in the market and to serve the stakeholders with a competitive advantage. And again, Agile implements these changes in the fastest possible way. The fourth one, that it's all about communication. And here, RE provides a lot of tools for efficient collaboration between stakeholders and the developers. And again, Agile utilizes this collaboration to deploy running product increments without comprehensive documentation. So it's a perfect fit. The sixth one, face-to-face conversation. Again, RE provides a lot of verbal techniques where people communicate face-to-face directly to each other, and our Agile values that very much. Again, perfect fit. And the last one I want to mention here is simplicity. So simplicity is essential. This means not doing any waste, maximizing the amount of work not be done. So minimizing in another sense, minimizing the amount of work to be done. And RE provides the relevant understanding of the stakeholders' desires and needs to minimize this way in an agile way. This waste, in an agile way. So RE and Agile share the same goal of the delivery of quality software. Agile approaches can deliver running software in an efficient and fast way, and RE provides the techniques and understands the stakeholders' desires and needs to develop the right software. To summarize, agility makes software development efficient, and RE makes software development effective. This works very well with each other. So now I want to dive deeper into the content of the RE at Agile. So the first two paragraphs apply to both to the RE at Agile primer and the advanced level. The primer is not the subject of this talk. I want to focus on the advanced level. You can check out the primer on the website. As the name says, it's an introduction. The topics are more or less the same as within the advanced level, but of course the advanced level goes in depth and gives you really hands-on information, where the primer only gives you an introduction. And I'll come back in a few moments about another difference here. So let's talk about the benefits of RE at Agile. Requirements engineering and development competencies in the same team can reduce handovers. So we think that bringing RE knowledge into an Agile team gives a lot of benefits, because in cross-functional teams, in an Agile development, the team will have all the skills to develop the desired software then. The execution of the RE task within the team reduces the need for comprehensive documentation of requirements in advance, as the RE members of the team can pass on certain details directly to the dev members. So there's a clear benefit bringing RE competence into the Agile team. And then a very important thing is that the time box is a practical means to finish requirements engineering work, because recognizing that requirements are completed in a sufficient quality to start the validation activity is a real challenge, especially for people who do not have that much requirements engineering experience. The working time box is a practical means to finish requirements work. The requirements are ready for validation when the time is up. This is the good enough for now principle. Okay? And thereby the RE people are forced to present their results for review and get feedback that may help them to really finish a requirement in the right level of detail at a certain point in time. RE helps to define the product backlog. RE provides several techniques to gain a proper understanding of the stakeholders' requirements for a desired system. Thus, the RE facilitates the initial definition of the product backlog at the beginning of an Agile undertaking. And in such a situation, it is important to recognize that RE does not create a full-fledged specification. We don't do a full specification and document that. Instead, the goal is to focus on a complete understanding of the system on a certain level of abstraction at the time being. For example, understanding and defining the essential use cases. But there are benefits, but there are as well prices to pay. Incremental development may not encourage innovation. The problem is that the incremental process of Agile is very typically done in a very limited scopes. This means, for example, fixing errors or adding missing elements in increments. And although the Agile Manifesto explicitly welcomes change, radical innovations related to a certain artifact like software are not achieved, since the artifact itself or the underlying design is often not questioned by the reviewers, and increments appear to be an improvement already. So let me give you an example. If you've got a user interface designed with, let's say, 3 tabs with an overview in the information tab and then detailed information tab and the history tab, In a series of iterations, information elements may be moved back and forth between the overview tab and the detailed information tab. But a radical change, like changing from a tab-based design to a one-page design where information can be faded in and out, is typically not considered because the reviewers might not take such a radical change into account. Yeah. So you are working on what you have, and you should take a step back and think about more possible solutions. So developing alternative ideas in terms of software is typically considered as waste in agile developments. But radical and substantial innovations emerge through the consideration of multiple ideas and the recombination of existing ideas. So RE at Agile provides proven alternatives for developing innovations that are in line with the Agile principle. But it's work. You might create some waste due to trying different things. Another price to pay is that the knowledge of requirements lives with people. If you rely on little or even no documentation for requirements, this is feasible as long as people stay in the Agile team. But if a team member with really significant knowledge about a certain element of the system leaves, the knowledge about this element leaves as well. So as there are needs of sustainability and maintainability, RE at Agile will not replace the need for requirements documentation. But it can be optimized by creating these deliverables by an emerging process, adding them to the definition of done, for example, to ensure that they are updated regularly. So there are means to overcome that. And Agile comes with a cultural change. Agile values promote changes in the way projects are organized, loss of ownership on some deliverables and collective responsibility. And Agile promotes continuous retrospectives on the behavior of the team to improve its way of working. So a continuous change of the team and eventually the whole organization is inevitable. The cultural change itself is not a bad thing, but the continuous change is a price that has to be paid. So that's what I want to give you for the misunderstandings, pitfalls, benefits, prices to pay. And before we dive into the content of the syllabus now more deeply, let's see how the RE at Agile fits into the CPRE scheme. So this is the landscape where you do have the foundation level, CPRE foundation level at the bottom, and on top of that, the advanced level modules on the right-hand side are RE at Agile. And there you can see the primer down right, yellow one. And the difference here, as I mentioned before, and I want to complete that, is that for the RE at Agile primer, you don't need to have any prerequisites. As it's only an introduction, you don't need to have really in-depth knowledge about requirements engineering. But if you want to do RE at Agile on an advanced level, you need to know about requirements fundamentals, and therefore the foundation level is a prerequisite if you want to go for the RE at Agile advanced level as for the other advanced level. For the primer, it is not. For the primer, you can go even if you don't hold a CPRE foundation level. Just to make that clear. Now let's have a look at the syllabus. As I mentioned, the syllabus from a structure looks pretty much like the primer, but it's much more comprehensive. If you look at the handbook, and many of the things I'm showing now you will find in the syllabus in the handbook. The handbook has about 100 pages, and the primer is a much thinner document. So there are 6 educational units, we call them EUs. The first one is what is RE at Agile, covering a lot of things I've told you in this talk. We talk about visions and goals, stakeholders and scope. and then specifically in an agile context, how to elicit functional requirements, how to elicit quality requirements, or sometimes called non-functional requirements, how to prioritize and estimate requirements in an agile context, and then scaling of requirements engineering and development. So EU1, what is RE Agile? We give a bit of a background and history of requirements engineering and as well agile approaches, because beyond what we are seeing today, it started quite early, long way back. There have been agile approaches. And then we explain why sometimes the disciplines are considered not to be compatible, which is, as I mentioned before, a misconception from our perspective. Then we talk about strengths and weaknesses of requirements engineering methods and of agile approaches, and we give you information how to combine the strength of both disciplines and how they can complement each other, if applied correctly, of course. And how development projects can benefit from what we call RE Agile as an integrated approach. This is EU1. Educational Unit 2 talks about something we call a clean project, which we think is an important prerequisite that enables successful iterative incremental system development. Most of the work in software development is mental work or plain thinking. This means that most of the work is not visible from the outside compared to traditional crafts. So in a workshop or construction site, mistakes you can see quite soon, and they are very obvious and visible to others, and they may be corrected very fast. A mistake in thinking can only be noticed if the output of the thinking is visible in some form, and the output may then be recognized by a person, a reviewer, and that this is wrong, leading to an understanding and identification of the mistake in the thinking. Agile approaches are often not aware of this problem, so people think that direct communication and fast feedback cycles are sufficient. But although they are really helpful and valuable, they are not sufficient. There might be misunderstandings. For example, if the shared big picture and other visible artifacts are missing when the development starts, then direct communication and fast feedback cycles cannot prevent multiple reworks. And the idea of a clean project start is presented in this EU and describes important prerequisite that enables successful iterative incremental system development. So EU2, all about the clean project. EU3, handling functional requirements. How do we deal with multiple levels of granularity? Very often, stakeholders talk to you in very different levels of granularity. Sometimes they're doing very abstract, high-level statements where you need to find out what a requirement is all about. Sometimes they are talking to you in very great detail, almost on a level where you could directly start to implement. So we help you to find out how to bring the requirements to a level of detail which is suitable for the time being, which means things which are to be developed a bit more in the future can be on a higher level and much more coarse-grained, and things you need to develop in the near future on short term, you need to do on a fine-grained level. EU4, handling quality requirements and constraints. Qualities of the system, like performance, user-friendliness, robustness, and extensibility, are often taken for granted. Users and other stakeholders often assume that they do not have to be stated explicitly, since the develop team already should know about them. And the same is true about organizational and technical constraints. Requirements engineering experts have asserted the importance of these non-functional requirements for decades. Even though the term non-functional requirements is still often used in practice, an umbrella term for that is quality requirements and constraints. And IRAP uses the more concrete and precise categories, quality requirements and constraints. And these quality requirements and constraints are as important for project success as functional requirements. And this unit helps the product owner to handle them adequately. The fifth, EU, prioritization and estimating of requirements. So we talk about business value, risk, how to put that into priorities and ordering the backlog, estimating user stories and other backlog items, choosing a development strategy. So the agile approaches aim to maximize the overall business value over time and permanently optimize the overall business value creation process. When planning for and achieving this constant addition of value, all requirements, whether coarse or fine, should be ordered preliminarily based on the added value they can bring to the business. But business value can mean many different things to different organizations. So clarifying the term business value is one of the core topics within this EU. And then we present several estimation and prioritization approaches. And in the last EU, we talk about scaling of RE at Agile, how to develop, manage, and record a roadmap for complex products, how to estimate large and not yet precise backlog items for that roadmap, how to manage requirements that have to be implemented by more than one. We focus much on Scrum because it's very popular out there, so which have to be implemented by more than one Scrum-sized development team, and that might work on distributed locations. And we talk about a couple of popular scaling frameworks. So this was, in a nutshell, perhaps a big one, the RE at Agile advanced level contents. A few information about the exam. This is the same as for all the other advanced level modules. Part 1 is the multiple choice test within 75 minutes plus an extension for non-native speakers. You need, and I don't know where this error comes from always, it's 70% of the total points is required to pass, as for all IRAP exams. Please check out the examination regulations on our website. I will fix that right after the talk. And then part 2, there's a written assignment within 1 year after part 1. Let me check. No, I did not enter a comment to that. The written assignment of 1 year does not mean that is that much work you should invest into it. This would be far too much. The written assignment is intended about 1 to 2 days of effort, which you can spend in a period of 1 year. And the reason is that for the multiple choice test, you have learned a lot of theory, which you then have been tested in the exam. And then we want to give you the time to use what you have learned to apply that in your daily work. And once you feel comfortable with all these theoretical things, once you feel that you can apply it in practice, then you go for the written assignment. As I mentioned, 1 to 2 days of effort and about 10 to 20 pages of a document you should hand in then. This is the exam. The resources I want to share with you are the exam regulations, where you can see more detailed how the exam looks like. It's on in the download section of the IRAP website, and you will find as well a practice exam there, where you can check whether you are on a level where you could think about taking the real certification exam. That was it for the talk from my side. And now I'd be more than happy to answer your questions. So Sabrina, perhaps you might get into the talk.
Yeah,
I don't know whether...
Thank you very much, Stefan, for this really interesting presentation. And of course,
so perhaps people could ask in the chat. Or...
Yes, it would be good if you could use the chat or the question function. And before we will start answering your questions, I would like to give you an exclusive discount code for our webshop, for the ISKI webshop. And with this code, Agile Advanced, you will get 10% discount on your RE at Agile Advanced level exam booking. So you either have the possibility to book a paper-based exam or a test center exam. If you book a test center exam, the exam is conducted via Pearson VUE. So yeah, use the code if you would like to book your exam. And now I will take a look at the questions. So one participant is asking if we are recording this webinar. Yes, we are doing that, and we are happy to share the recording with you. So we will do that after the webinar. Then we have a question for you, Stefan. How does requirements engineering respond to uncertainty? Can you give an answer on that?
To uncertainty, this comes to me by surprise. So this is kind of uncertainty in such a talk. In fact, I don't see any particular technique or method for handling uncertainty. If you look at the development process, I think the agile way of doing things deals a lot with uncertainty as you advance towards whatever direction, and you then do a retrospective, and then you check where you are and where to go next, and there you can explore and apply the, let's say, full tool set of requirements engineering techniques to elicit requirements from the point where you are. So this is more, from my point of view, a way of doing this while you advance in a project and always refining requirements in a certain context, taking into account the things which happened just out of a sudden or which you did not expect.
Thank you, Stefan. We have another question. What is your target group? Product owners and developers?
For sure, the product owners, because the product owners are, this role is very much perhaps a bit overloaded. The product owner is responsible to fill the backlog, and therefore he or she needs to deal with requirements. The backlog is let's say an ordered list of requirements in some way. On the other hand, you need to get the expertise as well into the agile development team, because you want to have these short communication ways, and you do the testing within in the development team as well, and then you need to be to be able to handle the requirements and to deal with requirements. So there needs to be some knowledge in the team as well. Yes. So the answer is both, not on the same level of detail, of course, a bit more towards the product owner, but as well the knowledge is important for the team.
Okay, then there is a participant who is asking if it's possible to make an online exam for RE at Agile. Yes, it's possible. So you have the possibility to book a test center exam, as I said before, and that means that you will get a voucher after your booking in the web shop, and you can redeem this voucher on the Pearson VUE website. It's pearsonvue.com/ISQI. And then you can choose your preferred time, date, and your preferred time and date, and do your exam nearby your home. So there are over 5,000 test centers all around the world. And we have another question for you, Stefan. How does the CPRE AL training certification differentiate from product owner trainings, such as PSPO or CSPO?
Yeah, so the clear differentiation is that we are focusing on the requirements engineering part, bringing into this field requirements engineering skills, and you will not have that in the same way in product owner training. Yeah, because requirements engineering is a very, very specific skill set, which is useful for product owners, but the product owner trainings out there do not focus on that. They are focusing on other aspects.
Thank you. And we have the question if IREP, RE at Agile, will also offer a framework like Scrum. So a framework for requirements engineering management.
No, I don't think so. Especially as I mentioned, that what the tool set we have fits into these agile methods out there, whether it is Scrum, extreme programming, or other things. You can use the RE stuff in there, and there's no need to have a specific requirements engineering framework for that.
Okay. Then one last question. Is there any specific agile method less compatible with requirements engineering when you practice requirements engineering in your daily work? Difficult question.
I'm not aware of any agile way doing things which would not be compatible with requirements engineering. The thing is that you need to integrate the requirements engineering tasks into your agile way of doing things, and this means you need to let's say customize it. And I think check out the handbook for the RE Agile. There is a lot of information, plenty of information on how to do that. Yeah, and I'm sure that it fits to every agile approach out there.
Okay, thank you, Stefan.
As long as you understand that there is value in certain things, like some minimum documentation on the right level of detail at a certain point in time. If you understand that this is a value, then you are able to do it. If you would say, no, we don't need to document at all because it's all crap, then, of course, there is no way to get it together.
Can you give an example of high-level requirements? Stefan?
Excuse me, I already started to talk, but I needed to unmute my microphone.
Okay.
Yeah, a high-level requirement could be that you say that a stakeholder says, yeah, we want to serve the customer with the best user experience in our web shop. This is very high level. What does that mean? So you need to break that down to concrete things where you say, okay, the checkout in the web shop where you go to the payment needs to be done in a way where the customer can select very easily his different payment methods and so on. So this is from a very high level and abstract requirements down to real concrete things you want to implement there.
Okay, that was a good example, I think. The next question I have is, should non-functional requirements be part of acceptance criteria?
Yes, of course, but you need to be aware that such quality requirements, like the system needs to be fast or the system needs to be robust, you need to transfer to something measurable and testable. That means that you, for example, for the speed, that you define certain functions where you give response times which are acceptable, and then you can make load tests to the system and check whether you can meet the response times. But the quality requirements are very often weakly phrased, like being fast, being robust, being maintainable, and so on. So you need to transfer these kind of requirements to really measurable things.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. So let me check the next question. So the next question is, oh, sorry, I lost it. May I use technical epics to handle with quality requirements?
So this goes a bit beyond my knowledge of what you mean with technical epics. Of course, epics and themes are a means to define scope and vision and to handle the bigger picture. But it's on a too high level as far as I'm concerned that you can describe quality requirements. As I mentioned, I don't know whether I lost the question, but I think the question was what it serves to describe quality requirements. And for the quality requirements, as I said, you need to transfer them into concrete, measurable things. And therefore, I think the epics and the themes are too high level. Nevertheless, epics and themes play a role in RE Agile. Check out the handbook. It's described in there how you can use epics and themes, how they fit in there.
Okay, thank you very much. Then we have two last questions here. The first is, how long is the training for the RE at Agile Advanced certification?
Typically, the training is about 3 days, but this is not rock solid. This means you can discuss with a training provider to shape the training in a way that it suits your specific needs for your company. So whether you may have it in 3 days in a row, whether you want to have small chunks with workshops. In fact, we are discussing these things in a couple of areas where customers said, hey, for our agile teams, we cannot do a 3-day training in a row, but we want to have a workshop of let's say a half a day, but this we want to spread over a month or 2 months, and then in the end it sums up to the whole content. Can be, but the typical regular training would be a 3-day training.
Okay, thank you. And the last question now. So I'm working as business analyst in an agile company. What value does this module have for me?
As a business analyst, you are dealing a lot with requirements, and you need to be able to do these requirements work within an agile context. So if you have already practiced this a lot and you know exactly how this can be done in your agile environment, you might perhaps not find too much value in it because you are already too experienced. But if you're facing the situation that as a business analyst, you are in this agile world and you see that things are not going very well and that you experience problems with requirements, then you should for sure have a look at it and see how requirements can best be worked with in this agile context. And as I mentioned, check out the handbook. The handbook describes all the things, how it goes. Even if you don't think that the certification is important for you, the handbook gives you the knowledge which you can apply, and then you can directly identify the value for you in your specific context.
Okay, thank you so much. Stefan, do you have the time for one more question?
Yes,
So
of
really
course,
one last one. So are there any common agile requirement engineering tools available on the market?
No, nothing which is really specific for agile requirements engineering tools. I'm not aware of. So what you are using is depending on what your needs are. If you need all these traceability things in your context, if you are in a regulated market, you might still use more heavyweight tools for that. If you are very much in an agile context where these things are not that important, you might go with the typical agile, very popular tools like Jira, like Confluence or whatever, and implement your requirements engineering processes or activities in there. But there's not a dedicated thing, as far as I know, which addresses specific agile RE things.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. I hope we answered all your questions properly. And if you should have any more questions or need support, just let us know, just contact us, either Stefan Storm or me, and we will be happy to help you, to support you. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining this webinar. And yeah, enjoy your day or your evening. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.